Hi, I'm Lisa K. Donner, along with Dave Patterson, Sarah Cowgill, Scott Cosenza, and Kelly Ballard. And this is the Conservative Five, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. On today's episode, Time and Place, Honoring Valor. It's about time with World War I memorial long overdue. In our segment, The Masked Cow Conundrum, we discuss the terrors of bovine belching. And wait until you see the hard truth of corporate pandering in Corporate America Bankrolls BLM. We wrap up our show with a bit of trivia in Just for Fun, Volume 30. This week you won't want to miss it. It's U.S. political crimes and misdemeanors. All this and more coming up on this edition of the Conservative Five. It was supposed to be the war to end all wars. On April 6, 1917, the United States formally entered World War I. And when the last shot was fired, 116,700 American soldiers had lost their lives. Remarkably, this nation, one that has honored countless veterans and causes, had yet to provide a fitting memorial for such a sacrifice until now. Dave Patterson, before we get into the memorial, let's discuss the Great War a bit because the history is quite interesting.
It is, Lisa, and I think that few people remember it now. We have the movies, of course, 1917 and All's Quiet on the Western Front, but nonetheless, I think that this is sort of faded from the memory of most Americans. But as some background, I think it's interesting to note that on June 28th, 1914, a Serbian terrorist shot and killed Archduke Franz Ferdinand, who was the heir to the Austria-Hungarian throne. He also killed his wife, Mrs. Ferdinand, and
I'm sorry, I didn't laugh at that. It's not a laughable moment, but it just Mrs. Ferdinand.
Austria-Hungary, miffed about this, declared war on Serbia on July 28th, 1914. Russia and France lined up with Serbia, and Germany supported Austria-Hungary, and the war was on. It was a number of things happened during World War I that hadn't happened before. It was first time that gas warfare was used. The French, oddly enough, were first to use gas in August of 1914. They used tear gas, however, but the Germans, wanting to be one up, in the April of 1915, were the first to use poisonous chlorine gas, and from there, phosgene and mustard gas soon followed. And if you think this was kind of an isolated incident, the Germans released about 68,000 tons of gas, the French and the British 51,000 tons, a little bit lagging, but the Germans were the first to use flamethrowers. Overall, 65 million soldiers from 30 countries were involved in all of this.
Wow,
and it was amazing. I mean, it was just and horrendous, the trench warfare.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, just for a second before we get into the memorial, the politics of it. I guess it was the Zimmerman telegram that supposedly tried to persuade Mexico to enter the alliance. And, keeping in mind, Woodrow Wilson campaigned on the idea of keeping us out of war. His slogan was something like he kept us out of war. Well,
that's exactly right. And after his second term started, about a month later, the United States declared war on Germany on April 6, 1917.
Yeah, okay. Now,
before Archduke Ferdinand was assassinated, a person could travel to any country from any other country carrying any amount of currency and any firearm they chose without paperwork. The imposition of the war is a crushing blow against liberty. War is the health of the state, and World War I really started us down the path of this anti-freedom kind of regime that so many live under today.
Yeah, well, don't forget that the PC police were out in force during World War I as well, because American hamburgers, named after Hamburg, became Salisbury steak, much to the dismay of people who really knew what Salisbury steak was. And Frankfurters, which were named after Frankfurt, became Liberty dogs. And of course, Dachshunds became Liberty dogs as well. The hot dogs were named Liberty sausages, actually. And so we also stopped teaching German in our schools until
Oh.
somebody realized that we actually needed to be able to speak German in order to decipher the coded German messages.
But they're not Frankfurters, they're weenies.
Oh,
No,
okay.
those are the dachshunds.
It's
Come on, let's
just
get this
weenies.
right.
They're weenies. They're weenies. They're weenies. No matter
Well,
sausage
it's
or
interesting.
chicken lips, it's weenies.
I think too what people forget is that after World War I, 4 new nations emerged: Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland, who had not been sovereign nations prior to that time. We also had the Selective Service Act that was congressionally mandated. A lot of things happened during World War I that set the course for history for a lot of nations, not the least of which was the United States.
Scott, I'm a little bit fascinated by that Liberty travesty that you unearthed, because the Ferdinand thing was like in the in the teens of the 20th century, but there were other assassinations before then, very famous assassinations. So it's interesting to think, why did this trigger?
Well, we can bring that right to the present day and tie it in with Dave's comment that Finland was created out of this war, for instance, and the war itself was created by interlocking alliances and treaties that required nations to aid other nations, and so that's why it became a world war pretty quickly. And we just saw this week, I think it was, that Finland got official approval to join NATO, another country that Americans and all other NATO members will now have to go to war to defend by obligation if they get into hostilities with another nation. I think lay my cards on the table. I think we're headed in that direction with this Russia-Ukraine business, and we're just stoking more of it. Why not advise on an ad hoc basis whether we want to engage in a war or not? That seems to me to be the pro-constitutional and liberty thing, not to write a blank check to the Finns, even though, obviously I have nothing against the Finns. I'm sure they're lovely people. But to write any other people or other country a check, that they get to cash with our lives and treasure, it just seems like it's the lessons of World War I should caution against such a course.
Well,
So basically the ironic lesson here is the war to end all wars basically prepped for every war following it.
Absolutely.
That's a really good way of putting it, Sarah.
I think what most Americans should do is to read Paris 1919, and that is an extremely well laid out pathway to where we are today, and all of the mistakes, principally by Woodrow Wilson, but others as well. And war makes strange bedfellows. I mean, you had on the Germany side, you had Austria-Hungary, Bulgaria, and the Ottoman Empire, whereas on the Allied side, you had Great Britain, France, Russia, Italy, Romania, Canada, Japan, and the United States. And so, Italy and Japan had it right that time. But this, as you talked about, Scott, these are strange alliances by today's standards.
Well, let's get into, you went to Washington, D.C., made a special trip up there to see the memorial actually in the works, and it's a pretty stunning piece of artwork. Can you tell us a little bit about it, Dave? And, let me just say one thing. It's nice to see kind of a traditional piece of art that is just, it seems to be, it's filled with meaning.
It is. It's a tremendous piece of art, and it's done by Sabin Howard, who is a classical sculptor, and his classical tutelage and his background come out beautifully in this wall, which is about 60 feet long, 12 feet high. It's got 38 different sculpted figures on it, and it is really stunning, and it is a wonderful testimony to the sacrifice of Americans during that time. It kind of is a roadmap of how the doughboys and their families approached the war. You have the poignant moments in the very beginning where the soldiers are saying goodbye to their families. You have them off to war. You have the war itself with all of the misery and horror that took place during World War I. with the killing fields of gas and the explosions, and it's all extremely well done. Sabin Howard has made this a mission, and in fact, he calls it, from vision to sculpture, basically, and it is truly a magnificent piece of work.
Yeah, there was a video that after reading your article, I Googled, obviously, and then there was a video on YouTube, and it was he was demonstrating and explaining how he was working on these soldiers and what he felt and how he did his art, and it was phenomenally cool. And the thing about this piece of artwork, at least in my mind, is that no one needs to know anything about World War I. All they have to do is look at the sculpture and you will feel it. It's a story. It's a story from the beginning to the end. And it is amazing. It's an amazing piece of work.
And it's really an international work. If you look at it, he calls it Vision to Bronze, and it involved processes in China, New Zealand, and the UK. And the figures actually were shipped to the different countries. In fact, many of the figures have more frequent flyer miles than I do. And it really is a magnificent work. And it took a great deal of creative genius to make this come to life. And it is. Sabin's wife, Tracy, and his team, they were allowed 700 hours per sculpted figure. And Tracy, the program manager, kept them to it. In fact, wanted them to do it in 500 hours. She didn't mention whether or not she was successful. But if you look at this effort as an engineering project, it has all of the various elements. You have integrated projects plan, you have an integrated management schedule, all of the things that you wouldn't expect to have from an artist. And yet, in our interview with Sabin Howard, he said that he didn't mind that characterization of being an engineering effort, and in fact, it was useful to him. But you can see that his dedication is clearly evident, as each bronze figure has a poignancy of emotion, and he captures something that anyone who has been unfortunate enough to be in war, there's a thing called a war face that people put on as they go into battle, and he captures that beautifully.
Wow, Dave, this sounds just amazing. Before we wrap this up, can you tell us where our viewers can see it and when it will be open to the public, etc.?
Absolutely. The War Memorial is going to replace Pershing Park across from the famed Willard Hotel. It's part of the National Mall Memorial locations, and will be open 2024.
Okay, thank you so much. And you can find Dave's poignant article now published on libertynation.com. Thanks so much for sharing this moment and the memory of all those who lost their lives in the Great War. Thanks, panel. Just when you think progressives have played their final hand, they argue to use the Joker as an ace in the hole. That's what the crazed left has finally done. Faced with cow-loving people, whether for pets or for supper, the progressives announce a new idea that's, well, it's not going over too well. See, it's not actually cow flatulence that is the problem with climate change radicals. No, folks, they got it wrong. It's actually the burping. The crazy left, along with Bill Gates, want to mask up American cows. Yes, you heard that right. Cows wearing masks. Welcome, Kelly Ballard. Kelly wrote an excellent piece for libertynation.com that has gotten the attention of a lot of people. And we want you to fill us in about this strange new mad cow disease that's affecting people.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks for having me on. So one of the terms we like to use is bovine emissions.
Oh, thank you for that.
And AOC, she got this right she got the right animal, just the wrong end of the animal. Like you said, it's the burps that's causing the methane gas issues. But so this company decided to make they're more like visors than masks, but they're artificial intelligence. So it measures not just like the heat in the area, it measures how much gas they're emitting, seeing how active the cow is. And these cows have to wear them all the time while they're eating. So when the cow belches, the mask oxidizes that gas and then releases it as carbon dioxide and water vapor into the air. Now imagine being a cow just out there doing your thing and you have to wear a visor to eat. And what happens if the visor determines that cow isn't as efficient as the others? I mean, does it get sent out to pasture? I mean,
it gets eaten. That's what happens. They'll just send it off to slaughter. It's not about that's that's like the nice way of saying that we're killing another animal.
Right. I mean,
I'm paying $16.99 a pound right now for ribeye at Costco. What's this going to do to the price of beef in the United States of America? That's what I want to know.
You know, I
have to factor in the visor. I can't keep a fly mask on my horse.
I look at what readers are saying, and we've had quite a few readers commenting that this is the most amazing idiocy they have seen from the left in a long time.
Yeah, this is ridiculous.
Well, it's so important to people that they actually did a study using a satellite, which, wasn't cheap, to study how much methane is being released by cows at a ranch in California. I mean, it's a lot, but those who are against this, what did they call it? Factory farming. They call it factory farming. They said that's the problem, is that they're putting all the animals in one small section instead of letting them roam free. And one farmer even said, what about, back in the day when there were 1 million buffalo running around? They didn't have the problem then, but now we need to put these mask visors on cows. So,
well, Sarah, didn't you say something, or somebody said something to me, that it's a feeding issue? We're basically feeding the cows in a way that makes them have these emissions, that's
the factory farm. Yeah, the factory farm.
Yeah, cows are finished oftentimes at feed. So there's the dairy milking cows, which are one side of the cow industry in America. And that's not what this is about. This is about the cows for eating, which
wait a minute, Scott. I got to ask you a question. So the dairy cows don't have emissions the same way the other cows do?
Well, Kelly's article and the problem that it profiled was with the satellite imagery and so forth, was featured a finishing lot. Basically, the density of cows per acre on a farm that is a dairy producing farm is much lower than on a finishing lot. This is where they basically send cows to fatten them up for slaughter. So for a few months before they're slaughtered, they send them to these places where they eat a diet of corn, which produces a delicious tasting and fantastic marbling effect in the most cost-effective way possible. And that's why it's done. And all the cows are packed together, and they're eating this corn and emitting methane, I suppose. And so, the problem is that if you want cows that are grass-fed and grass-finished, which that's certainly a lovely way to go if you can afford it, it raises the cost per beef, per pound of beef significantly because of the increase in resources that it takes. So, you want cheap stuff readily available. Well, you got to pay for it one way or another. And this is one of the ways to pay for it.
City people never get it. I mean, city people never get the idea that, I can go out to 35 acres and see 50 cows having a great time. And, they don't get it. You don't lock them up and feed them and then test their emissions to make sure they're not burping too much. So it's absolutely ridiculous. And they just don't even understand the agricultural process. And nor do they want to. What does a cow look
like when it's having a great time?
I think, though, that
cows are happy little critters.
Progressives have missed the target here. And, it's not really burping bovines. I think they should put their satellite focus down on Capitol Hill, where you have a number of boutique beer joints. And I suspect that our legislators visit those quite a bit. And who knows what legislative emissions are in
Plenty of
Washington, D.C.
emissions down there on A Street. Yeah.
Oh boy, K Street. Somebody ought to run a satellite over that and see how much
I just
gas
can't
is in the air.
I can't believe they're serious about masking up cows, Kelly. I guess that's the thing that most of our readers reacted to.
And what I thought was also funny is they're talking about the certain type of animals, the two toes, like camels. And can you imagine putting those masks on giraffes and and goats and your sheep and whatever else, four stomachs?
The same people that want the grass fed are the ones that want to mask up the cows. I mean, isn't that right, Scott?
It's free methane, right? Why aren't we hearing about some recapturing process whereby we can then use this to like power our grills to grill some nice steaks up? That's what I want to know.
And you are a one-track mind kind of guy today, Mr. Cosen.
Cows. What else do you think about when you think about cows? Is butter, milk?
Think about the cute. They're cute. They're adorable.
Cheese and beef.
Yeah.
I
And cute.
named a whole pasture
Also
once.
that,
I was so bored.
Okay, Dave, you want to wrap this up? One final comment?
Well, I think that Kelly has brought us to a subject that is of extreme importance to not only just the United States, but the world, particularly Argentina, where there is a lot of beef. And they never even mentioned Argentina.
Oh, good point. I didn't put that together, but you're absolutely
either.
right now that you mentioned it.
Yeah.
Well, I doubt that any farmer or rancher will think that putting a mask on Bessie is going to do anything much more than irritate the human or the bovine. Thanks so much, panel, and thanks, Kelly. Liberty Nation published a telling expose in recent days on the hijacking of corporate America by Black Lives Matter. It shows multiple billions of dollars donated from significant banks, popular stores, and name brand producers, all in the big corporate rush in feeding the George Floyd frenzy. From big pharma, big banks, and the most obvious culprits, professional sports leagues, all throwing money at an organization that is even more controversial than the Clinton Foundation. Scott, what does it say about corporate America today? This was really a staggering story by author Joe Schaefer.
Yes, well, Joe reports on the study that was completed by the Claremont Institute, and what they did was look at who these companies and organizations gave money to, and basically how they differentiated where they drew a line for a number counting as a Black Lives Matter distribution. Was they looked at organizations that were either they had Black Lives Matter in the name, right, or were an official Black Lives Matter group, or another group that was born from the same time that the Black Lives Matter group is, that's an affiliate group within their universe. And I'll just run down some of the numbers, which are quite staggering. The total that Claremont reports is $83 billion given all in. And just to run down some big companies and the numbers they gave, Citigroup, $1.1 billion, PNC Financial Services, $1.05 billion, 600 million plus US Bank Corp, Wells Fargo, 200 million, BlackRock, 800 million, Morgan Stanley, 30 billion, JP Morgan Chase, 30 billion, and then just some like run-of-the-mill companies, AutoZone, $5 million bucks. Enterprise Rent-A-Car, 85 million, 200 million for Foot Locker, Target, 110 million, and it goes on. And then the sports leagues, just to close it out, Major League Baseball, $150 million, NBA, 300 million, 250 NFL. I mean, it just goes on.
Well,
is this group even, is Black Lives Matter still even in existence? You don't hear about them anymore after the whole use all this money to buy houses.
Spending all that money is no easy task. They got a lot of work.
Aren't they also being investigated for misuse of funds too?
Oh yeah, you put your finger on that one, right, Kelly? And I think some of the ones that are surprising that are going to move people off their chair and onto the floor are Chick-fil-A, 6.2 million, Costco, 25 million, Ace Bandages, 50 million. Allstate Insurance, 7.7 million. I mean, this is a lot of dough. And as someone said to me recently, well, what do they do with it all? Anybody have an answer to that?
They bought houses and they lived outlandish, expensive lives, as far as I can see.
I think there's a deeper dynamic here that is even more troubling, and that is, and you bring up Chick-fil-A and the millions that they provided. It is amazing how group extortion can take hold of a nation with very little effort on their part. Americans, by and large, are trusting. That is a big mistake. And you have huge corporations, Boeing, for example. I mean, my goodness, this is an aerospace and defense corporation with engineers and lawyers. And these clowns gave money to these scam artists. This is a big problem in the United States.
Yeah, I think
because
you're
everybody
right.
wants to be popular. That's all it is.
What about the
Nobody
theft
wants to
from
be
the
the boogeyman and have, your name drugged through social media because you didn't play ball with Black Lives Matter.
And the theft from shareholders for these publicly traded corporations, which is rampant in this country. I don't know what the fix is, but you've got a bunch of progressives that are at the top of these corporations say, all right, we'll cut a check for millions of dollars of shareholder, owned money to facilitate our pet political projects.
On the upside,
this is virtue signaling at a corporate level that's, really staggering. Hey, and by the way, I'm not sure we can completely blame BLM. They didn't say, hands up. These guys coughed it up. They did it to themselves. They coughed up tons and tons and tons of money.
The sports franchise doesn't surprise me at all. But what about, didn't SVB do it too? Silicon Valley Bank?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Absolutely. Here, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, there's a process here. I mean, they're not stupid. First of all, let's establish a standard by which we will judge whether or not you are reasonable, whether or not you should be in business. And we're going to call this ESG scores. And oh my gosh, now you have a standard by which you can say, see, your ESG isn't high enough. Therefore, we're not going to buy your products. And that's extortion.
Hey, Scott, isn't DoorDash on there too?
DoorDash is on there. They gave $1 million. So they're actually hikers compared to some of the rest of them.
Well, so where I live, I don't even have a car. I use Uber, DoorDash, Walk, whatever. And I use DoorDash for groceries or Instacart. And DoorDash, they pop up all the time saying, this is a Black-owned business. Why don't you shop from here? Yeah. And that just kind of drives me nuts because it's like, I'll shop where I want. I
don't care what color it is. Just give me what I want.
But
I think Joe brings up a good point. And where does that put people who are not hep with all this, virtue signaling? Are we, just the minority that's looking down their nose at everyone? I mean, or what do? Do we boycott the world? We boycott everything?
Maybe you could recognize your privilege and get your checkbook out, Lisa. How about that as an option, huh?
Yes, that's right. You're right.
Well, you can't boycott everything or there would be nothing, left that you could purchase, which, and where I live, that's okay because we grow our own food, including cows, Scott. They're cows. Masks. They live in a pasture. Anyway, I digress. I think what we're seeing here is you can't just be pissed off and stop buying stuff from people who donate something that you don't like.
Not anymore. No, you just can't. You can't do that. Campbell.
I don't want to discourage boycott campaigns. I want to go on record. I support boycott campaigns generally, and if it moves the needle, then I say do it. I don't want it doesn't behoove anybody to bite off the nose to spite their face. I'm certainly not going to try to find a new ribeye source, even though Costco's.
Oh, Scott's still on the stakes. Okay.
I wrote
an article
still hungry.
I wrote an article about the American dream, and there was a study there that more and more Americans are getting upset with companies getting so political. So that can be.
And I think too
that's where I read that. It was your article on the American dream. That's interesting, right. Kelly, that you brought that up. People are kind of getting old.
Mm-hmm. And remember when the LGBTQ community attempted to shut down Chick-fil-A, Chick-fil-A's business and market almost increased logarithmically at least. And so there is a downside to the cancel culture.
Yeah.
Well,
You can get canceled.
yeah, well, now it can be said that social justice pandering did not produce much of a return on investment. Thanks for watching, and thanks, panel. Crimes and misdemeanors in U.S. politics. Are there any? Really? This week's trivia game on Just for Fun is all about hands in the swamp cookie jar, and there will be a prize. But I desperately wanted to play, so I'm handing off the ceremonial duties to the lovely Miss Sarah Cowgill.
And I would like to add that the lovely West Coast Kelly Ballard is going to be my Vanna White and hand out the prize at the end of the show.
Okay, we got two blondes in charge. Or
Maybe
three.
rock and roll. All right, so I've got a bunch of questions, and I'm not going to call on you. I would like you to just blurt out. Kelly, you have to play, by the way. Even though you are Vanna, you still have to play. And
1949 primer-coated Ford.
What in God's holy name are you blathering about?
Huh?
You want me to blurt out? I blurted it out. 1949 primer-coated Ford.
Okay.
Is that an answer?
Okay, so somebody mute Dave, and
Who
let's
was
continue. Dave, who doesn't like the word verve, let's continue. And I forgot my glasses downstairs, and so therefore,
Not verve.
jeez. Okay, and this is because everybody whined last time. This is multiple choice. So if you guys can't figure it out from here,
Yes.
then I really have no use for any of you. So let's get started. Are we ready?
Fingers on the buzzer.
Ready here.
Gonna be.
Wow. Are you ready?
All right,
Yes.
we're
Yay.
We're ready. Ready?
Scott,
Knoxville.
Scott's a work in progress. All right, first question. Which first family swiped nearly $30,000 in furnishings from the White
Clintons.
House?
ready.
Was it Ron and Nancy Reagan, Jackie
No,
Kennedy,
everybody says it was them, but it's not.
Bill and Hillary,
Bill and Hillary.
Dwight
Bill and Hillary.
Amy Eisenhower?
Bill and Hill.
Is my mic on? I'm shouting the Clintons since you started this.
Well, because you're so quiet and you're not enthusiastic. You're not shouting anything. Yes, it was the Clintons. There was like 198,000. They ended up paying 100 back and giving back the stuff they took.
Well, what did you expect? Were they going to use paper plates, plastic forks?
Well, no, they came in
And
with
that's the
mason
single
jars,
instance
so why
where
not?
they reimbursed the American people for what they took out of us.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Sarah,
right.
number two. Should we wait till you're done with all your multiple choice, or should we just have at it if we know it?
Okay.
Oh.
Who was the first president to ever be arrested during his term or after?
Grant.
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 It was Grant,
Yeah.
arrested and jailed for driving his horse and carriage too fast. Arrested and jailed, like in jail. Had to bail him out of jail.
Wow.
Okay,
The
you
guy
guys
named
are like,
Cohen
I
testified
need a little
against
more
him.
energy, or I'm gonna go downstairs
All
and
right,
slam
all
some
right,
moonshine.
We're waiting for the next one. We're on our pins and needles here. Go ahead.
Which administration weaponized the IRS, the FBI, the
Barack
DOJ
Obama.
Obama.
to spy on opponents and then actively covered it up? All
Barack-
of them. Obama. All of them some
Obama.
more.
At least
Or Nixon.
Obama, and
Yes.
perhaps and most likely several others.
Well, Richard Nixon falls into that category too a little bit.
Well, I'm not a crook.
A lot. I mean, if you look it up, no source will ever say that anybody did anything wrong except for Richard Nixon. So basically, all of them is the right answer because any president from the get-go to now has access to the highest powers. So
The
I'm gonna
IRS sent
say all
agents
of
to
them,
Matt.
all of them.
The IRS sent agents to Matt Taibbi's home the day he testified.
Okay, we're getting
before
into the
the
non-funny
Congress.
territory. Yeah.
Okay, because we got non-funny Scott on the show. On September 15th, 1972, a grand jury indicted 5 Watergate office burglars for conspiracy, burglary, and violation of federal wiretapping laws. Tried by jury, but who was the presiding judge?
No idea.
Sirica.
Whoa, well, now you need some little, okay.
No,
Judge
no.
Thurgood.
If you give me another 10 seconds, I can do this.
Well, you can't Google while you're sitting there.
I'm saying I will remember, given a moment to think about it.
I'm not going to let you. Judge Thurgood Marshall.
Thurgood Marshall?
Was it Judge Sentel?
No.
Judge Thurgood Marshall, Judge Lance Ito, Judge John Sirica, Judge Wapner. Pick one.
Sirica.
I was close, by the way. Sentel's a different judge in the DC.
Not even
court.
close. They're
So-
Mr. Enthusiastic.
Okay,
Okay.
I have that one.
All right. And there is going to be a bonus question, which I hope
Okay, so
that everybody gets.
let's let Vanna take a break here. What's the score, Kelly? Who's got what? Scott's got one, right?
Scott's got one. Dave and I have one. You have one.
Oh, okay. Wow, it's going to be tough with the prizes. Okay, I want that prize.
Okay. Which first lady is rumored to have run the presidency for her husband?
Mrs. Wilson.
Edith Wilson.
Too many to count.
Edith Wilson after Woody had a stroke. Who ever got that one?
Nancy
I don't know.
Reagan, same
Edith
thing.
Galt Wilson. I
Hillary
think it-
Clinton, same thing.
So who got what? Who got
Who
that?
taught? I think Dave and
Dave.
Lisa got that one.
Dave had Wilson and I had Edith Galt Wilson.
I'm still right. No, the answer is many of them.
No, he's really
Oh,
Edith
no.
Wilson because he was completely incapacitated.
Can't win by that.
He was just in the
She
drool and
actually, she actually signed his name
yeah.
to government documents,
Yep.
which of course today is a federal offense, right, Scott?
Not if nobody prosecutes you for it, Dave.
I'm not saying
wait.
I've done this, but I know some people who have signed their politician's signature when he wasn't around to sign some things. And I'm not.
I've signed a
Are you telling
legislator's
me,
name
Scott?
with their permission to some official documentation when I worked in a legislator's office. It's not. I don't think that it's that uncommon.
You just admitted
How
to a
did we go
crime.
down
I
this
did not,
bunny trail?
however.
Kelly, how did we get down this bunny trail? All right, can we go?
I don't
next?
know. I got lost. So
Okay.
I
okay.
phased out.
What do you got?
Kelly's bored. She's like, why do I have to?
Scott's,
Why do I have to keep
Scott's
track
the
of this
lawyer,
crap?
so he's going to have the last word. And he's going to argue that he's right. So
Wait do you see what Frankie does with this? It's going to be a mess. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, here's the bonus question. Besides Richard Nixon, name 2. And if you guys can't do this, I'm disappointed and I will just leave. Name 2 of the 5 men involved in the strategic Watergate break-in plan and following cover-up.
E. Howard Hunt and Gordon Liddy.
James.
Who?
E. Howard Hunt, Gordon Liddy.
Gordon
That's-
Liddy, Howard
two.
Hunt,
You can't
James
just re-say
McCord.
what she said. What are you talking about?
You asked for 2, right?
I asked for 2.
And
Yeah.
I
You
gave
guys are getting them right, so I just want to see if you know most of them.
Oh,
It's all the Johns, guys. It's all the Johns. Mitchell, Ehrlichman, and Dean.
Oh, yes, that's right. That's right.
Oh, okay. I thought you were actually looking for the plumbers. I didn't know you were looking for.
Yeah, some of those people didn't know about the break-in before it happened. They only
Right.
helped cover it up after.
That's why I only
So
asked for 2
Right.
names.
Liddy.
So
Liddy
here-
is the.
I got
was-
it. I got it.
She
The
got, at
mastermind.
least got it.
Yeah. So here's an interesting question. There was only one of those who was convicted and sent to prison for a crime that was never a crime before and not since.
Gordon Liddy,
Colson
right?
was convicted of conspiracy to
Oh,
obstruct justice, not
Right.
obstructing justice, but conspiracy to obstruct justice. And it was the only time that was ever used.
So you can't even think about obstructing justice?
No,
Darn
oh,
it.
by the way, you can be convicted of a conspiracy without conspiring with anyone.
With just
Okay.
yourself, huh?
Who won?
Yeah, right.
Vanna?
You know what?
right,
You have to be
Vanna.
schizophrenic, but
Well, that would be Lisa and then Dave.
All right, Lisa and
Recount.
Dave can split. What is the grand prize, Vanna
Demand a
Kelly?
recount.
What, M&M's? I don't know.
There
What's
you
the
go.
grand
Hold them
prize?
up.
I was
Show us
hoping
the
for, I was
prize.
hoping for a Liberty Nation coffee.
Keep your non.
I'll
What kind of
still
person
put it
eats
in the
non-peanut
Liberty
M&Ms in the
Nation.
first place? I reject the notion that that's any kind
I'm
of
not
prize.
having Scott on this show again. I'm just saying.
I thought you did a great job under duress, Sarah.
Thank you.
Well, who knew about that
She's
horse
got her
thieving
clothes on.
president? Thanks for watching, and we hope you played along. Bye-bye.
Oh, Vanna, bye-bye. Elbow, elbow, wrist, wrist.
That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform. YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble, we're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, surf on over to libertynation.com. Special thanks to our fantastic editor and post coordinator, Frank DiOrio, and our executive producer, Sarah Cowgill. I'm Lisa K. Donner, editor-in-chief. Thanks for joining us today. This has been a production of libertynation.com, where truth is making a comeback.